Welcome back to Tales from the Shogunate, a Shogun companion podcast. This is Paul here with Inez and Gabby. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. Thank you for inviting us back.
Refreshed from your journey across the Southwest?
Yeah, hopefully my sound quality is much improved.
It's at least doubly better, if not triple.
Excellent.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, maybe quadruply better.
Quadruply. That's a good, solid word.
4 is my favorite number, so I'll take it.
This episode was called The Eightfold Fence. This is the 4th episode of Shogun, what will be their one and only season, apparently. You know, I was listening back to our most recent podcast for the 3rd episode where I had mentioned that I didn't think that one had a lot of character stuff in it, and Gabby disagreed right away. And I look back at that comment and I think she was probably right. It's that it was strung in there with all the action scenes in a way that didn't get bogged down in moments of long character building kind of stuff. And I think this episode probably balanced a little more toward character and building those kinds of relationships and all that kind of stuff than did the other one. But man, it sure finished with a bang. So before we get to all that, why don't we start with a short synopsis of this episode? We're going to round robin this thing. What's the first thing that happened in this episode, Gabby, that you want to mention?
Oh, I like this. Okay, first thing is they're on the ship. They're on the ship heading to Ajiro. I really appreciated seeing all of the main characters, the key players on the set, like pretty much at the same time.
What happens next is kind of cool.
Oh man, this is a big old welcome party.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
It was pretty epic. I really loved that. It was so grand. And then also, you got to see some little hints of other things going on.
Poor Yabu, he's like, my guys are kind of yelling louder for Toranaga than they are for me. And he starts to thinking, what about that? All right, so then I'll go with the next point. The training has to begin. The training that Anjin, Blackthorne, Hatamoto has said that he knows how to do, but clearly doesn't. This is an interesting thing that I want to discuss later because it is much different in the book.
Very nice, yeah. And then I guess just to wrap it up is some what you said, just lots of character development between people.
We have Blackthorne figuring out how to work with his household. We have the wheeling and dealing of Yabu, Omi, and I couldn't get the name of the samurai with the eye patch. I missed that. And again, Omi with Naga. There's all these just sitting and talking because it's raining outside. What are we going to do?
That's right. You're right.
They're doing what we're doing.
I was appreciating the rain. I know. I was appreciating the rain, but you're right. Maybe that is like very practical reason.
Yeah. And then, man, yes, there was a little loving, and then some of the bloodiest action I have seen in a long time. Holy crap.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So let's get started. Let's start it wherever you want. We're at the beginning. I think that was a good spot. Actually, can we talk about the ship in the very beginning?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Right. So the opening scene was Fuji with Mariko. Again, like with the female empowerment, this was really interesting because, Fuji is finally expressing, herself that she's like above being a consort and she'd rather be a nun and she's grieving. But in her conversation with Mariko about how she just lost like her husband and her child and then realizes that, Mariko just lost her husband, that really shows you a bit into like the culture, right? Of how much sacrifice the Japanese like women really had to go through and then just really repress it all to continue fighting the good fight for these people.
Oh, you'd love the book, Gabby, because Mariko has to spell it out for Blackthorne. She has to spell out the the constraints and expectations that women live under. And man, would you just love it. You just be like, give me more. I'd like to live like this.
You know what? I'm listening to the book slowly but surely. Right now I'm watching a bit of the like other show.
The classic series.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. And boy, would I rather be listening to the book. But I'll get there probably after we're done with this podcast. But I will get there and I will appreciate it. So thank you for.
Oh man, yes. Let me just give you a taste. Whatever a man says is right because a man said it. That's just a taste, just something to look forward to. It's coming.
I mean, I get it. I get it. But these ladies do a really fantastic job at, I don't know, just laying it out nice and plainly, and you still have to respect it.
I like the negotiation aspect, though, that Toranaga
Exactly.
respects when he wants a year and she'll only give 6 months and he doesn't bark at it. He accepts it.
Yes. That's something that I was going to point out too. But I think I'm going to circle back to one last point after we talk about everything, because I did notice a theme that started here. I noticed a lot of foreshadowing actually in this episode. One thing I want to say though before we do really, really get started is, Paul, I really love it when you say that I'm right. That felt really nice. And you said it 1.5 times, if you say it again, it'll make me feel better. But yeah, I appreciate that you're speaking big facts today. I was right about the character development, wasn't I? And the excellent writing.
You were. Yes. And it's only fair to admit it. 'Cause how else do we learn if we always say that we're right? No, you gotta know when you're not right.
Yeah, but when you are right and you're still learning, it's just even better.
That
Maybe
does help
you wouldn't
too.
know.
That expands things.
I'll teach you a little bit. Anyway, okay. So moving right along, they land. And then what you were saying, right? That was a really great scene with his soldiers chanting his name and then switching it over to Toranaga, and they just kept chanting and changed the rhythm, and Yabu really felt pretty terrible there.
It just really highlights this is why Toranaga is so powerful, and he is so successful in like where he is as being one of the top leaders of Japan. And you see it because he knows how to, how he was basically orchestrating it like a conductor with that fan, right? Like swelling, and I was moving with it too. And I was just like, God damn, I would follow him anywhere. He's just such a inspiring guy. And then I was listening to, I was listening to an interview with the costume designer who was saying that when they actually, the question was, about the costumes, would they be easier when they have to go to the countryside versus when they're in the city? And I feel bad that I didn't write down the name of the costume designer, but he was saying it's actually when the costumes get more complicated because they have to go and make a big stunt of showing, like being this most sparkly, having the best things when they're out in the countryside, just to kind of show with their presence, this is my power. I'm really powerful, and it captures people. And so looking at Toranaga's outfit, how it was just like this beautiful design fabric, and it was a beautiful color. And I also wrote down during that scene that I kind of got a feel, I don't know if it is intentional or if it's just my mind going there, because all of these episodes are pieces of art, but I kind of felt like the far background kind of could look like it was like a painting, almost like it was not detailed enough to look like it was trees and fogs. It kind of gave me a little bit of a Japanese kind of art, and I don't know if that's an intentional thing or if it's just kind of an happy accident kind of moment. But I think all of that adding and then centering Toranaga on there, it's easy to see how Yabu was so easily, like they just moved right on. It's like, Yabu who?
Yeah. In the book, it's a little more spelled out that Yabu is a cruel man. I mean, we've seen him boil a guy. I think we can extrapolate that if that's what he does to just some rando that he's captured for no good reason, then how does he treat the fiefs that he is in control of, right?
Yeah.
And in the book, he says things like double the taxes for this region. Could you imagine if someone just said double the taxes for you? right now, what kind of strain that might be on your life. And that's the kind of shit that he does. He abuses power. So to see someone wield it so gracefully as Toranaga probably set him off in a bad way.
I mean, just adding to what Inez was saying, when Toranaga landed, he immediately let the soldiers know. And in his little speech, he said, "Those who stand against the Taiko, may the gods blast you all." And he said blast. So that was some excellent foreshadow there. And then circled back saying that for all of those who are loyal and are there presently fighting for him, he humbly bows to the army. And obviously that was the right cup of tea or the Kool-Aid that they needed to then absolutely look up to him and want to follow him. Whereas Yabu takes a totally opposite approach where he just tries to intimidate them at like the wolf, the sheriff wolf in Robin Hood, right? He's just bullying everybody, and Toranaga comes and compliments them a little bit, makes them feel good, and, you know, convinces them they're on the same team, and so they want to die for him. They're not going out of fear, they're going out of love. They're following him with like love and admiration and respect. So that's very opposite of
especially
Homeboy.
Knowing that he was only going to be there for that moment. Like he wasn't even going to stay.
He had to make
an
impression.
Yeah. And now if there's a dick sizing swinging contest here, he won.
And one of the best parts, though, was that little old lady who was like, and at first when she saw Toranaga there, she said she should have gotten the good wine. And then when she saw him leave and Yabu stayed, she said she should have bought the cheap wine. So even the wine that she did have was too much. So there's not a lot of respect for Yabu. Like there's a lot of fear, but not love and respect in that community.
Well, they've got Yabu's nephew in charge, Omi. I don't know what to think about Omi. He's sly, he's crafty, he's young, but I don't know if he's actually that smart.
Yeah, so this episode was really cool and different from the last ones because it had the next generation kind of running the show. It had Yabu's nephew and Toranaga's son. And that was like a huge breath of fresh air for me because it does add to, I guess, the common thing we were talking about before was just about like succession, the line of succession and how that would go. And that's what we're seeing with these two. But I do think that Omi, I don't know, I'm going to go ahead and give him plenty of credit because I think that what he's doing is calculated and he's learning from Yabu on how to play both sides and how to also let both of those like lead toward his like benefit and his ambition, which is being the lord of that area. Okay, so in this scene where he's talking to Yabu, because Yabu is playing his cards very openly to Omi the whole time, and Omi is just absorbing everything. I don't know if you know anything differently, like from the book, but from what I was seeing, yeah, he is obviously like trying to be in his place because he's trying to stay in his lane around Yabu because Yabu is like constantly humiliating him, constantly humiliating everybody. I mean, the most like psychotic person there is related to you. So you do have to walk a fine line, and maybe playing dumb is how he does that. And that's usually effective. But he told Yabu that like he found a solution. Like he said, maybe I have a solution to his problem when Yabu was saying like he's basically about to die because the Shido is going to kill him because he's a traitor because Toranaga put him in the situation, but Toranaga is going to lose and die because he's a loser or whatever. So he's saying like, I can't believe I'm going to die for this guy. And then I mean, this whole time, Omi is trying to problem solve and he's giving Yabu like insight and information. Yabu's going with it. But then at that point, the end of the scene when he's chatting with him of like looking at the cannons into the valley, he said, I have a solution. And then the next scene is him talking to Toranaga's son. And he kind of plants the seed of like, oh, well, Toranaga's not here. Like, are you going to prove yourself or whatever? And to me, he was planting a seed and he was wanting his son to do something and take matters into his own hands and basically start a war. And I don't know if you noticed, but you fast forward to the very end, and when those cannons were blowing people up, Yabu was freaking the fuck out, and just in the background, homeboy Omi had a smile, he was thrilled, like a thrilling smile on his face. And so I think that there's more to Omi.
Well, that's proof that he could plant a seed, incept an idea in another guy, and see it come out the way that he kind of wanted it to come out. Now, in the long run, how that starting the war, killing Josen right then, plays out for his little village or himself or his house or whatever, that remains to be seen and read by me. But yeah, it's maybe the difference between tactical and strategic thinking.
I think that, they're young. I think that the actor who plays Nagakado, Yoshi Jr.,
Yeah.
he's only like 24 years old. And I
Yeah.
think that he's portraying somebody who's like this youthful 20-something-year-old. And I'm kind of putting Omi in a similar type of range, just like Gabby mentioned, right? This is the new generation. And I think that what we're seeing here is like, the evolution. Toranaga is known for his trickery. So that's like a thing that they know. All this trickery stuff, Toranaga may have the title on it, but all of them fucking do it. And so I think that these young men, maybe Omi's not the smartest one. I don't know. You have more context from the book than I do, but it definitely is him practicing, the evolution of what kind of leader or person he wants to be, regardless of where his like motivation's coming from, right? It's consort is feeding him the ideas. She's incepted the seed, and that's motivated him to do something. And then he's just like, okay, I know he knows how to like run around Yabu at some capacity too, because Yabu's also doing his work, his trickery stuff. You don't know where he lands. Even though after today, I think that it's very clear Yabu definitely is only about himself, and I don't trust him to help Toranaga whatsoever. Whether the outcome is going to be successful in Omi's end, because he might be too young to be able to see that far, but it's him practicing a strategy. It's him practicing something and him doing something. And if we kind of put between him and Yoshi Jr. together, I would say that he's winning, because all of this is kind of up for grabs, really. With Toranaga's death in the air, everything seems so fragile. It doesn't feel very stable that if Toranaga Sr. does pass, Junior is going to be easy target to pull out. He's very emotionally impulsive. He's ready to like show himself. He's anxious and scared also. I'm just seeing their skills that they're putting out there. And
he's Sonny from The Godfather.
I don't want to think that way, but yeah. I suppose. Well, you know what? No, he's not Sonny, because he had a plan that he laid out prior. Like Sonny's not like that. Sonny just, I'm
rolls
do
up
it myself
to your house and beats you up. That's what Sony does.
Yeah, no, this guy at least like hired someone else to do it in secret. That's much better. But I don't want to think of Toranaga passing, so I won't. I'm just gonna knock that out.
No, we need that guy to stick around.
Yeah, but I think that he's gonna. I don't know. I wasn't too disappointed with Nagakado, because it had to be like, so far they're in peacetime, so they can afford to do these like behind the scenes, I'm gonna diss you a little bit, but like technically there's still policy, so you have to respect me in a way. Like homeboy Toranaga is gone. As I said earlier, like now that the regent system is like over, I think that it's all out war. It's a free for all, because nobody can technically move. You're at stalemate. So what do? You just knock the fucking board over. And so that's what Nagakado did. Okay, as far as strategy goes and tactic, I mean, a message is being sent, but at least that like they killed the messenger. So there is a message sent, but they know they received a letter, but it got ruined on the way. You know what I mean? So I think that that's beneficial, and that is like a good tactic. I mean, because they know they're going to war. They know Ishido is about to invade. Like we already know the inevitable.
So basically, like, they're going to hide the evidence. Like, they just basically have just bought themselves some time, because there's not really any way for Josen's crew to get a message out.
Exactly. They have no idea about the cannons, and they don't know how that's going to destroy them, and that's going to be Toranaga's trump card.
What do you think, Paul? Do you think that Yoshi Jr. made the right call?
No.
What will Toranaga think?
Toranaga will think, what the fuck did you do? We're not ready yet. He might come to understand that there wasn't much to do, because Yabu had unveiled the cannons for the people they were planning on using them against.
Exactly.
So what else could be done? We're going to war one way or the other, but I guess it's happening sooner rather than later. Slight difference in the book, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, but the message that Jozen brings in this is for Yabu to come back to Osaka and face the music.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, the message is actually you need to come to Osaka because we've just gone ahead and picked a fifth regent, and all of the daimyos have to come and reaffirm their fealty to the regency.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's very different.
Yeah. There's another major difference in this section of the book, and this makes total sense to me. And maybe you guys can help me with the historical aspect. But in the show, and we'll talk about Blackthorne more fully, because he has a lot of stuff going on in this episode. But in the previous episode, where he admits that he doesn't actually know infantry stuff, but he's quick to agree. No, I'll just say yes, whatever, I'll make it up. And in this one, he kind of spells it out that he's a sea guy. He doesn't really know land fighting. None of that takes place in the book. He just claims to know it all. And in fact, will start teaching rifle type maneuvers. They don't bring up the cannons at all in this section.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's historically inaccurate because they did already have guns because from the Portuguese. So
that's what I was kind of wondering. They'd already been introduced to guns, but they just didn't like using them because of Bushido and their belief system.
Yeah.
Then in the book, it makes me wonder, like, did he just get it wrong? Because he got so much right. But did he just get it wrong that teaching them how to use the rifles, that's the basics of that. I mean, that's where they wanted Blackthorne to start was with very basic rifle type stuff. And you think about what they were doing with like firing lines and that kind of stuff, because the muskets took so long to reload. So you needed lines of guys that would kneel down and all that stuff. That's what he was teaching in the book. Stuff he probably has no business actually knowing. So I think this is a pretty good change.
Their marketing on this show is all about the historical accuracy. So that makes sense. And I like that.
James Clavell is the one who wrote the book, right?
Yes.
And he also was a producer in the original Shogun TV show.
Miniseries.
And yeah, the miniseries. And he's not like anything.
I don't think he's still around.
Right. But he does have, there's someone else on here that's like named Clavell.
Yeah. And I think they're a consultant or something along those lines.
Yeah, she's an executive producer.
Okay.
So he was a producer on Shogun, the miniseries, and I'm watching that one and I am noticing like huge differences with the historical accuracy. And I don't know if like maybe we should talk about this. Like it's very, very like white man based. Like it's more Blackthorne, Portuguese. Like the Japanese characters, like people they don't have that much power. They really don't have any speaking lines. I think the interpretation of the culture is completely like flip-flopped. I don't know if the book is more consistent with the first miniseries, but yeah, this next one though has the actor who plays Toranaga.
Hiroyuki Sanada?
Yes, Hiroyuki Sanada. I didn't want to mess it up. So he's a producer on this show and he's actually like the script supervisor and set supervisor for everything. He's on set for every scene, whether he's in it or not. And he's in charge of like the consistency of every aspect, whether it's like sticking to the Japanese culture or just the consistency for fighting, since he's like actually a martial artist. I saw something behind the scenes, that scene where there's in the first episode where a samurai, where the assassin comes by and like kills people, and you just see this in the shadows down to every detail in this choreography. Like he's there just tuning everything. And so we have an actual like Japanese martial artist who really respects the culture, who is the culture, and he really takes care of this. I think they said like there's like 400 Japanese people, like Japanese, I don't know if it's like between the castmates and the production, but they all came to Canada, and he's in charge mainly of taking care of everybody, making sure that they are like well acclimated, they are comfortable, the set, the environment is as it should be for like being healthy and learning and being accurate. And so, yeah, so this show is definitely through the most like respectful and responsible eyes of the actual culture, someone representing it.
So basically what you're saying is that this is a more respectful version because it's like taking the original whitewashing version of the culture and mannerisms and putting it through real live historical and respectful lens of it. And then this is what we get is what today's Shogun is they're doing the tweaks different from the book that are going to be culturally accurate and respectful.
I don't think that the original is disrespectful. I just think it's his vision, right? Because this is a historical fiction.
He wrote a kind of a series called something like the Asian Saga, I think. And so he wrote 6 or 7 books, all based in different Asian countries at different
so clearly had
points in time. Like one's about the formation of like Hong Kong and different things like that. So
yeah,
and I
was planning on checking them out.
There is a big difference in the way that the dialogue and inner thoughts are delivered in the book. The Japanese people are quite verbose in the book. So it's interesting to hear that they were portrayed as not having much to say in the original miniseries. But then again, if you remember content that was coming out from, I don't know, the 60s to the 2010s, there was, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a single Japanese scholar or something associated with the actual behind the camera aspect of that show.
100%.
Well, this was filmed in Japan though, so I think they tried.
Yeah.
Well, but the content, I mean, like there is whitewashing is a very common, well documented, obvious thing that happens that is in American film and in the what's popular film in general. And it's not even just in the 60s, right? Like I've seen Avatar, The Last Airbender, and then the following sequel show from that was Korra, and they literally changed Aang, who his name is Aang, and he's very, very much like an Asian guy. And then they have him portrayed in the Korra sequel as this like big, tall white man with white man features, but he still gets to keep his name Aang, you know? And so there's like a lot of conversation uproar about this constant whitewashing of media, because that's just like what's like popular for that era. And now people are making a very intentional efforts of correcting that. And so right now we have Shogun coming out that's going to be more respectful to it. It's not saying that the gentleman who wrote the book was being disrespectful, but there is an unconscious bias. And then it ran through filters by people who wanted to portray Asians a certain way because they could, because they were the ones who were able to do it. And so like even like the latest live action Avatar, they're being really intentional about their casting people based off of what is accurate to the story, and that they are representative of these minority groups that they actually are meant to belong to, instead of the whitewash version from the 90s and whatnot. So yeah, so I'm not saying that he obviously spent a lot of time. You mentioned all those books. He's also still, at the end of the day, is a white man. And
best.
He did, you know, and so who better
wasn't good enough for us
than the strategy that they're doing right now. And that's what makes this so powerful, is because it is so new for us, especially us like Americans, to see what authenticity really could look like in a fictional story.
Right. We usually see, particularly with Asian cinema, the things that stand out and cross the pond and come out in America typically feature a lot of hyperbole. You know, they're very stylistic in the way that they're presented. Like, think Crouching Tiger. I know that that's Chinese, but I think it still illustrates that the things that only rise to the top and make it all the way into American cinema are things that have that level of spectacle, whether it's from China, Japan, Korea, whatever. Yeah, to get something that's more nuanced and allows for actual character development without a lot of, I don't know, that just spectacles. Just, I understand, yes, some horses got blown up in this episode, but that's not going to happen in every episode.
Mm-hmm.
Think Crouching Tiger, though, like she dances on like a bending like willow leaf or something. That's a lot more stylistic and indicative of the kind of stuff we were getting for a very long time.
Yeah, and that's what makes this series just incredibly special and absolutely beautiful, is the authenticity and the actual, these cast members are from Japan and came here to grace us with their amazing talent and culture authentically. So that's really amazing. But we didn't talk about the title of this episode, which was the Eightfold Fence.
The Eightfold Fence.
Yeah, what does it mean?
Mariko educated us in this episode by letting us know that this eightfold fence is what they're taught when they're little. It's to build within an impenetrable wall in which they can retreat. And there you learn to listen without hearing. And that means you can listen to the sounds of blossoms falling and rocks growing. And so if you listen to your surroundings and the world, the earth, and life, the present circumstances vanish. So she said not to be fooled by their politeness and rituals, because beneath they can be a great distance away, safe and alone. And she's basically describing like solitude. Every person there is taught what deep solitude is, and it involves deep repression. While also, including huge appreciation.
What I thought made that a good title, or an apt title for this episode, was how, and this is just my opinion, that when they met, they being Blackthorne and Mariko, at the hot spring where he was bathing, and he described the Thames River and how he could kind of get lost in just looking at it in London, and kind of this romantic description of this would-be night in London for them. I think that she understood that was his kind of eightfold fence, and maybe kind of had like a new understanding of him that helped dissuade her from believing that what she read in the Rudders was the only thing to think about him.
Oh, like he showed his vulnerability, and he showed her like
in a way that she could understand. Yeah,
that was a very sweet scene. I think what she really liked about what he was saying is that it's busy. He said London is busy and there's always so much to do, and you can get lost there. And she said when you're lost, then you're free. So exactly, like that is his eightfold fence, but it's the opposite of being repressed. It's expression, I suppose. It's like being rowdy. It leads him to his freedom and vulnerability, but her, she has to like internalize and repress it. So it showed a really big contrast between those cultures. And it was so cute that it seemed like she, of course, like would want to experience that. And she was taken back when she learned that the queen would probably want to meet her, and he's right. And so it was such a change of pace in this episode where it kind of just took you into this dream. And something that I wanted to bring up was that, just kind of a common theme also, was that anytime there's like a body of water and these characters are looking into the body of water, they are like being vulnerable and showing more, like there's more openness about them, or freedom about them, or vulnerability. She was looking out into the sea or the river,
the little harbor where the ship is.
Yeah, and he was looking at, he's sitting in the spring, and the other episode in the very beginning of this episode, Toranaga is looking outward into the water, and that's when Mariko comes and says that Fuji is going to negotiate 6 months instead of 1, and he was very, very at peace looking out. Again, he didn't like bark back about it. So it's like the water is this thing that brings everybody this balance and peace. And one thing that's interesting though is that, what is it called, like the intro scenes, like the
Yeah, the intro titles, where they
Yeah,
play the
yeah.
credits.
So it has the ship going through the
sand.
like the Zen garden.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like Zen gardens are like their water form. Like so when you look into the water, it's like you're looking into the Zen garden. I don't know. I just feel like they have this appreciation for water and they're bringing it to wherever they are through the Zen garden by like having the waves there. And that's just part of everyone's like meditation, like intentionally having your surroundings in a way where it's going to help you meditate and find like your inner hearts or your other eyes or whatever. So I don't know, I thought that was interesting that anytime that there's a character that's looking into the water, you're going to see a different side of them that's more vulnerable.
This water is kind of interesting, right? It separates him from what he wants. He wants his ship. He wants his freedom. He wants to escape. And so he is feeling wistful. It's just right there. It's just like 100 yards away is what he wants. And he told us earlier in, I think, the previous episode that the sea, the horizon, is why he so easily left his wife and kids behind, because that's what he wanted more. So you're right. There's something about him being next to the water where it's like, that's where he feels like him.
Yeah, and I think everybody feels like them. Because Mariko, looking outward into the water, she was also vulnerable with him. That's when she struck up the conversation about her history with her father and their shame.
That's a big story. That's a major character moment for her.
Yeah, do you want to elaborate on that before I move on to the next water scene that she was looking at?
No, go ahead. No, keep going with that.
The next water scene was where she, the earthquake happened. And that's when she told him about the Eightfold Fence, right? And she also mentioned there's so many amazing lines in this episode. Let me find that one. Oh my goodness, it like made me cry. Like he had never experienced an earthquake, right? And so she said it was a baby earthquake and that they happen and that fires happen and that houses are meant to be built as quickly as they are turned down or that they fall apart. I don't remember the exact quote, but she said death is in our air, sea, and our land. And it can come for us at any moment. We live and we die. We control nothing beyond that. Like this scene where she was saying that, and I really should have gotten it like verbatim, but we live and we die. We control nothing beyond that. This is just, I don't know, everything that we've discussed and about the culture in all of the episodes. I think this really summed up and explained exactly how they are capable of existing during this time and seeing death happen in front of them, and like not the desensitized, but like the deep appreciation for life because you know that it is so fragile. That's something that they can't even afford to be dirty, right? Like in London, I mean, death happens all the time, but the way that he approaches it has like a lot less like he takes a lot of things for granted, but he also just has more luxuries, right? Like he can afford to go to town and forget about the world and be free. But she, with this patriarchal like society, I mean, both are patriarchal, but this one just with so many more rules. And then also the fact that it's not even just people trying to kill you, it's like the world is trying to kill you to exist. Everything is about intense survival. And so instead of being chaotic, this culture decides to be intentional, completely intentional, and that means controlled.
Look at Fuji, right? Lost her baby and her husband, and now she has to really show up and be Blackthorne's ride or die all of a sudden in the face of all that. Did you think that she was going to hand the gun over to Omi?
No.
I was oh, go ahead, Paul.
She didn't in the book.
She did not in the book.
Yep.
Okay.
So he knew, he saw it coming.
I thought that was such a great scene of teaching us, like, when Mariko says she'll guard those with her life, and Blackthorne is skeptical about it. And I just like that she mustered up her duty in that moment and was just like, now I got a gun in your face and you need to go.
Oh my God.
That was like a half Japanese, half Mexican standoff.
It was so great.
That was amazing. That was really, really amazing.
That scene played out a little longer in the book because it took longer to convince Blackthorne to hand over his pistols, and the whole scene actually starts with him seated, and and Omi is really up in his grill about handing over the pistols. It's quite a bit longer, and the acceptance of Fuji as the consort was actually quite a bit more mean-spirited. He said, "She's ugly. I don't like her. Get her out of here." And they didn't keep any of that in, in the
Oh
script.
my gosh, yeah, that would seem
Good.
really out of character too.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing with him here. I feel like it might be a little too honorable than what's realistic, but maybe not, because he was very successful there. So maybe he needed to not be a dick in real life.
That was a great scene, though. Those pistols, they looked very heavy, too. I don't know how heavy a pistol like that's supposed to be, but extending them out like that and just keeping him trained on a guy's face, because it was they got down to, like, if you advance all your guys, it doesn't matter what happens next, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of
Oh
things.
my gosh. Yeah, Mariko saying that she'll guard them with her life is the only reason why I didn't think that she would hand them over. But that was such a beautiful window into like the culture and the honor, which makes me think though, because okay, so Omi's consort or wife or whoever she is.
Keiko is a courtesan. She's a fancy prostitute.
Okay, so it's different. I just want to understand, like, I just want to know, like, what the level of honor is, like, for every person in their role. And it seems like she does really like Omi and they have, like, an actual relationship. But I'm just wondering, is she like part of being one of the spies? Like, is she a spy that's like helping feed information Toranaga's way? Do you think that Omi to some capacity like knows? Okay, so sorry, giving a little bit of context. You know how Yabu said that Omi, he pointed out that Omi has not found like the spy.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, like, did Omi obviously looks like he's not looking. I mean, Yabu said, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, well, like humiliating him. Well, I don't know. Do you think Omi's that dumb that he just like wasn't paying attention, or do you think he was paying attention, or is intentionally just like not going there because he kind of wants things to play out a certain way?
I don't know the answer to this, but I think you're onto something, because there aren't that many named characters in the village, and somebody has to be spilling the beans, and he runs his mouth after he's done humping her.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a lot of scenes where humping her. Yes. They have a lot of scenes. Sorry, I'm like a visual person and I just like heard you delayed, and so now that
now she's just thinking about Omi humping.
It's not even, but it's
Thanks,
like a
Paul.
rabbit. Like, it's not even like the actual scene. It's just some ridiculous little like cartoon. Okay, anyway, so yeah, she does. They do cut to her a lot where she is like listening in. She was even listening in when he was talking to Yabu, or when Yabu was even before this like intimate scene, or before the hump session. She was listening to him when he was chatting with the eye patch man and Yabu together. So I just feel like there's something there, and maybe Omi, I mean, he obviously cares a lot about this person. She has a huge influence on him. I don't know if it's just like maybe them ploying because like he should be Lord. Like, that village is running pretty well with him running things. And Yabu's just a psycho that everybody knows and doesn't like. He's also like becoming a man, whether it's like through relationship and also through leadership. He successfully convinced Nagakato, Baby Yoshi, to do something to start a war that now he's going to be part of. I think also maybe one of the reasons why he did that was because one of the things that Yabu keeps humiliating him on, and all the older people, is that he's like been existing during peacetime and he's never like seen battle. And so he is thirsty for a battle. He is thirsty to prove himself. But again, that village is not like, I think it would have been pretty easy to find out who snitched. And I think that he's either not looking or he does know, and it's just like more convenient for him to not do anything about it or say anything about it because he has his own motives.
I think
or
you're
he
onto
could just
something.
be an idiot and she's the mastermind. But thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past it. We learned from Mariko about, especially what we learned from the culture, the women, they have to be even more quiet than the men do. So their compartmentalization, their ability to become a wallflower, and just be aside and listen. And the patriarchy culture allows them to be hidden in plain sight, pretty much, so I think you're onto something there. I wasn't thinking about it before. I actually had no idea of who or where this spy could have been from. In fact, I totally forgot that they were looking for a spy thing. So, but now that you brought that back to the table for me, I'm going to be paying attention to that. I think it's her.
Mm-hmm.
So Mariko keeps taking notes, and she's like staring at Blackthorne when she's taking the notes. What do you think those notes are?
I think she's a soldier and she's just learning. I don't know. I'm thinking that she's intrigued, but she's the only one who understands him.
And she's also taking notes for Toranaga. She has to be.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I feel we talked about the first episode that maybe Toranaga's kind of like a mentor kind of figure to her. Mm-hmm. She's the only one who understands this guy, and it's really important to like keep track of stuff. You're a note taker, Gabby, because there's a lot of things going on in our brains. We have to take our notes or it leaves us. And I think that she's just doing that. She's the only one who has this. People are going to come ask her for stuff.
She's got the ADHD.
One of us.
Gotcha.
So anyway, that's what I'm assuming. I liked it. I liked her doing that because I totally would do that too. I'd just go around like, man, all of this is like super interesting. Let me just jot all this down. And they are very aware that they're in a moment of history in the making, so there could also be some kind of sense of responsibility of documenting. Yeah.
Right. Because she and Fuji both write. They both are seen like writing in a journal. And then when you see a man writing in this episode, it was Yabu, and he was drawing a woman. So that might say something about like their roles, whether it's intentional or just like culturally like falls into place, that the women were writing words and he was drawing. And that's the only time we see anybody like kind of being with a pen. Well, in the moment, though, when she was taking notes in the valley, when he was teaching them things, she kind of looked like she lost herself. And when he made eye contact with her, like she kind of got embarrassed or caught herself from like staring too long. So that's why I was like, oh, wait, is this like a little drawing little hearts in there? Like I'm trying to see some of this like romance like spilling over everywhere.
She's writing Anjin with like hearts around it.
She's writing out her.
So am I. Oh my goodness.
She's writing out her strategy of how she's going to convince Fuji to allow him to have a third party pillowing mate.
Right. So Fuji knew that happened, right? Because she came in right after. Oh wait, no. First, can we take a moment to like celebrate Paul's dream come true that our two favorites finally consummated their likeness for each other?
You think Mariko was? It's not clear in the book because she's very cagey that they hired somebody to come in, and they even gave her the same perfume that Mariko wears.
You think that that's what happened?
No, that's not what I think happened.
Okay.
But that's what she wants him to believe has happened.
Yeah, of course, because they're disobeying, and that's.
And they were very cagey with the lighting in that scene.
Right. I was, when I saw her, I was paying attention to how some of the scenes were recorded because I really liked, I think Omi had a scene like this. And then I noticed it again with Mariko, probably when she was reading the rudder, but it was basically just all dark and then the fire lighting up the face. And so you just get this small like sliver of their face. And that's the only thing you see when they're recording this. So with him, it was when he was having a conversation with Yoshi Jr. With her, it was when she was like, I think it was her reading the rudder. I can't remember. I only watched it once.
That was such a beautiful scene. Yeah.
Right. And so, and in that moment when I was watching that, I was noticing her bangs and how her bangs are cut and like very distinct. And then I was like remembering Fuji's bangs that they're like different. They're like kind of higher up, but Mariko's were kind of like, calm down, maybe high cheek. And it's like a very blunt cut. And I was just like making note of it. Didn't really think much about it until that liaison, until the third party person came through, right? And then I was like, I think that's Mariko, even though I just saw Fuji leave, and then I think this is Mariko, and I based it only off of the distinct bangs cut that she has that Mariko
Yeah,
doesn't have, and
it's
that
a
I haven't
thicker
seen other
bunch.
women have. Yeah, it's very specific. So to me, I thought this was kind of a hidden way, but also like those are the kind of small hints that we're getting that maybe this actually is Mariko. And when I saw his reaction to her explaining to him the next morning, that it was kind of like flirty, especially like when he said, well, it was very thoughtful, and then she kind of gave a smirk, and I was like, oh yeah, she got pillowed. So but I think that that's kind of cool that the book is kind of
Ambiguous about it.
Yeah, it did also pose a question for myself here, is like, okay, so I've heard from you guys, I didn't know this before watching this show, I learned it from you all, right, that these are based off of real people. And I listened to the FX official podcast where they started naming off the
Never
actual
mentioned the other podcast.
people. I started listening to the other boring podcast,
Yeah.
but they did mention
But that's like the writer, like that's different. She's not a fan.
it was honestly, it was boring, so I'm glad that we have ours going on. But anyway, the point is that my question to myself was, did this romance actually happen in real life, or is this like white guy like wishfulness? Because of the three of us, respectfully, I am the only one who's Asian, and so I have I actually have very intimate, personal, face-to-face interactions with Asian fetishizing, especially by white men. And then I actually am married to a white man. And in certain areas that, that I've lived, it's very common. It's just kind of like, if you're Asian with the white man, it's kind of an ongoing joke between us of like finding other couples where it's the Asian woman and a white man. Anyway, all that's just my own personal life experience, so don't come at me. But anyway, so then it just made me wonder, like, is this piece of story, is this history, or is this a white man's wishful hoping?
Okay, so from what I've seen historically, from what I've heard, was that Blackthorne's real guy, John Williams, right?
I thought it was William Adams.
Sorry, yeah. William Adams, there you go. I knew it was just kind of those OG names. Yes, William Adams. He was given like Fuji as like the consort, but he like asked Toranaga if he could instead have something with Mariko, and he said like hard no. So then he was like ended up with Fuji. So that's like what I think, that's like what I gathered, or what I learned, or what they said about that. Also, though, in the movie or in the show that we're watching, yes, Inez, excellent point with like the bangs, because she does have thicker bangs, but also their robe, Mariko's hair is longer, like in the back. I think they made it a point as like Fuji's like leaving the room, her hair is at a certain length, and then when the other person comes in and she shuts the thing, it's like significantly longer, like 6 or 7 inches longer. And then their robes are both gray, but they have different designs and flowers on them. So I really think that it's confirmed with all those little clues that it's definitely Mariko.
I do appreciate the little puzzle they gave us.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. For solving it, you're welcome.
I do worry about Mariko, because I saw some of the same stuff about the historical figures that the characters are based on. None of them share the same names, but I guess they correspond close enough with known figures in Japanese history that people have been able to match things up. And the woman that is the inspiration for Mariko dies in 1600. This show takes place in 1600.
Snap.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just the inspiration. That doesn't mean anything's going to happen to sweet, intelligent Mariko.
Well, okay, so this is interesting. Apparently the historical thing is kind of like, it kind of happened before, like, this is a little bit shifted. Like, I think they chose the year like 1600, but there's like a big battle that happened in 1600 that I think it was like it created the peace. And right now we're like in 1600 and it's about to like get messed up again. So I think like the decades are just a little, the timeline is just a little bit shifted with this version and the
Okay.
actual history. So that being said, I think the timing, the year is off, but now, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that they would like try to stick to the facts and something's going to happen to her.
Let's talk about the Blackthorne household just for a second, because we have talked about things that happen in the household. I know we mentioned it a little bit, but Blackthorne's, the way that he moves forward and accepts and changes, like offering one pistol to Fuji as an apology. For me, these things are happening good enough paced. You know, he's not turning over a complete new leaf. If someone told him, hey, you can take your boat and get out of here, he would do that still. You know, this is not his fight. He's not sticking around if he doesn't have to, but he has to, so he's learning as he goes. And in fact, in the book, there's this other element that they took out, which was that he is supposed to be learning Japanese in the village. And as a enticement to have as much help as he needed, he told the village that if Blackthorne doesn't learn Japanese in 6 months, he'll kill the entire village.
Who says that?
Yabu.
Oh my God. I love it. That's so funny.
Yeah, so there's like a bargaining scene where he has to say that if you don't remove that, then I will kill myself. Yabu's like, nah, dog, go ahead. And so Anjin, Blackthorne, attempts to stab himself in his chest, but Omi stops him. The blade enters his skin, but Omi stops the blade before it actually pierces his heart. That buys a lot of respect from Yabu in that moment, but they didn't include that in any form in this. Yabu was like, fine, I won't kill the village, whatever, just don't do that again. Because he knows if he loses Anjin at this point, Toranaga's going to be pissed.
That's interesting.
So maybe we'll see like some kind of thing between Yabu and Blackthorne like later on. I feel like from a pace perspective, I really like it. I feel like it's not exaggerated. I think he's he's in survival mode, he knows he needs to get acclimated and he needs to figure stuff out. He has this commitment to teach the people, so he needs to learn Japanese. We see him practicing Japanese, and he's using it in like real life arguments, right? Like nay.
That was so adorable. Oh my God,
it was so cute.
So
like nay. So good. So I don't know, I feel like that I like the storytelling and the pace that they're going through on here. I don't feel like not getting the sense that he feels like a duty to all of them, but I feel like he does feel like a duty out of respect, because I think because of his respect for Mariko and everything he's learned about Fuji through Mariko and understanding all of what Fuji's gone through, that's the least he can do, and he's just really good at adapting to his environment and figuring out like what, I think he's learning the bargaining chips around here and what he needs to do. And I think the respect to Fuji is very authentic and sweet, and it's just like kind of aligns with the character of who I'm learning him to be through his relationship with Mariko.
Well, one important cinematic technique was used in this episode between the opening milk dribbling fuck smear, give me your pistols scene, and the gift of the pistol to Fuji, which is the montage. There was a montage, and that I think we're supposed to know some time passes. Some days, weeks, something like that passes, because they're training the guys on the cannon. We see practicing the writing, we see reading the rudders, but it's all done with like that fade transition, which lets us know this is a montage. Stuff is passing over time.
Random question. You know how we are led to understand that all of the words that Blackthorne is speaking, especially in the first 3 episodes, is Portuguese.
Yes.
But is being portrayed in English.
Yes.
Now that we see him doing all of this training, and Mariko's not with him all the time, but he's still giving instruction and whatnot. Do you think that we're watching him speaking Japanese?
No.
Okay. Still Portuguese, but just gestures? Okay.
Yeah.
There are moments in the book when he will swear in English, and Mariko doesn't know English, and she doesn't know what he says.
Oh, interesting. Are there any parts that have already passed where that would have happened? Because so far, I think she's caught on to all of his.
Yeah, not that I've noticed. I think it's all been Portuguese, but played in English. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that we're paying a lot of respect to the Japanese, but fuck the Portuguese.
Yeah, as it should be. Okay, that's also the theme of this show. Get it together, Paul.
It's funny. My sister went to Portugal once and a dog bit her. So yeah, fuck the Portuguese.
The dog. No. That's hilarious.
Well, when they make their own version of Shogun from the Portuguese eyes, then I will look for the authenticity at that point. Yes. Let's wrap this up.
All right.
So, you know what? Mariko wearing her cross. So toward the end, I think we've kind of made it. We can of course like bounce back, but like one of the last scenes, or the last scene, right, when she shows up in the valley, I love seeing her with her cross. I think it's really great that not only is she like, you know, his translator, so she's around, and his babysitter and his protector, she's around him all the time, but what really sets her apart is that cross on her. And so that made me think back as to like what her intentions were when she decided to become Catholic. Yeah, it's just really important, I think, for her to feel different from everybody else because of the history with her father and then her pain. I think it was not just coping. I said before that I think she converted because she wanted to cope, and so she was just trying different things. But I do think this is just like a total strategic thing where she obviously wanted to learn Portuguese and other languages so that she can have an edge for when like she would then be ready to have her purpose or serve out her purpose. So I just think there must be some kind of like symbolism or some meaning to the fact that like she does stand out, and that cross like is representative of something like that visually and figuratively in the show.
It might come out later what Blackthorne sees as a conflict between her Japaneseness, her Catholicness, then somewhere in between the other beliefs that occur just from being a part of that culture that all seem to conflict with each other about, say, you know, thou shalt not kill, but then life and death are the same thing. So what's the big deal if we kill somebody, or covet thy neighbor's wife or whatever? That doesn't seem to be such a big deal either. And that is drawn out in the book kind of a lot. It's a conversation they have a few times so far. In the show, I think that could also serve to be a moment that they share together that they have not quite yet explored. Sort of like the explanation of her family and her father. She only enticed us a little, that some bad shit went down that she wasn't able to find resolution for, and Toranaga is now offering that resolution through whatever this service is that she's providing. That's a pretty juicy morsel to want to know more. What needs resolving so bad? You had a good family name, and now apparently you don't. So here we are.
So much is gonna happen.
I just know it's not going to be this way, but I think it would be really fucking funny if her whole devoutness to Catholicism was just some long game strategy of Toranaga's or somebody. Whoa. Right? To like use.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it is a long game strategy.
Maybe she doesn't know that she's like being used as a pawn.
Maybe.
Just a fun like thought to explore.
I mean, that's why not? Yeah. Yes. There you go, Inez. Bringing out those theories. She did it. She did it, Paul. She's not living in the now. She's living in the maybe.
There you go.
First, and I think we need to celebrate. But can we talk about the amazingly epic last fucking scene of this?
I don't see why not. I think we've chewed on most of the other important things, although I did want to say milk dribbling Fucksmere a few more times in this episode.
Oh my God. He was so funny. I didn't write that one down, but oh my God, I'm so glad that you did. I need to write that down now because I'm going to fucking use it. Oh my goodness.
You have to be able to say it with a smile like he did.
I can do that. I can do that. Actually, when that happened, I was like thinking, man, I really, really wish that like I need to be around other people who speak other languages because I would love to experience like his freedom where he doesn't even have to repress, you know, he just puts it out there and it's totally fine and good for him.
He's going to have a
That's
moment with Omi, I think. Regardless of what side who ends up on, I think there's got to be an excuse to get back at the guy that pissed on your back.
peeing on him again. Well, yeah, he kind of pissed on his back and it got like all over his face. But Omi, I don't know. So the pee, I'm really interested. I need to look into like the peeing.
Symbolic in nature of
not
pee.
even just the symbolic. Yeah, like what the actual cultural like significance is of peeing. I like it. I mean, it is. Is this where pissing contests came from?
Ooh, origin story.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna look into that and I'll get back to you guys. I'm all about the pee.
All right, final scene. We've got this big setup. For some reason, Yabu has painted himself into a corner with Jozen and is like, hey, these secret cannons, you want to check them out? And Jozen's like, all right. I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this coming at all. And I wound up reading this part of the book after I saw this part of the show. Mm-hmm. And it goes down pretty similarly, where there is a moment when Naga's guys basically surround Jozen's guys, but the difference is that they're carrying muskets and they take them all down. This is a much more spectacular way to do that same thing, though.
I loved this scene. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't remember if last episode, I don't think we saw really any physical gore, and we got flavors of that gore in the first episode, right? The boiling man, and then when the guy got beheaded in the walkway or whatever. But yeah, and so I was totally shocked.
Yeah, I think I said, holy shit, when that horse fucking blows up. Oh, man. Yeah, we're not going to make any Game of Thrones comparisons. We're not doing that anymore.
This is way better.
But
so let's keep it
This
here.
was so great. And fucking Jozen still like cursing at them with all his like limbs blown off.
No. I was like, Jesus fucking shit. Like I said around it. It was so much. Amazing. And yeah, what a fucking hoss. This man who is just like, this is not how samurai fight. You are savages. I was like, they are. And you're amazing. And you're still talking. And this is amazing.
Yeah. But what we were talking about earlier about how is the war going to start with this? Well, these guys aren't going to show up where they're supposed to for the next leg of their tour, if they're supposed to go back to Osaka or whatever, but they're going to go missing and someone else is going to have to come looking for them. And that might be more guys. So sooner or later, an army is going to show up in that little part of Japan.
This whole episode, right? It was lots of character development. It was incredibly intriguing, right? Like I was engaged, was not doing anything else, taking notes. I was just captivated. And then, when you get to that last bit, that rush of adrenaline that just like hit you was just absolutely incredible direction, incredible everything, incredible production. It was perfect.
If they do that in a scene like that, then what are the army fights going to look like?
I know. And then the last line, oh my God, Mariko, like, she's so composed all the time. And so anytime she does have any affliction in her voice, I don't know, it was so incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I liked how both like she and Blackthorne, like, were not watching. They couldn't bear to watch. Right as the scene is about to cut, Yabu is staring with like total fright. He's like, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to die. His homie behind him, his little nephew, Omi, has his like smile on his face, like he's like, yeah, fuck yeah, like I did this. And then it goes to Blackthorne and she and Mariko, and they're both looking down, and so it's just so symbolic, like everything. And that's why I think that Omi definitely is very proud of himself and is going to have a big role. But it was really powerful to me seeing this shift in power with everybody, and you see this huge defeatedness like in Blackthorne and Mariko, because she hasn't really shown that no matter what, even when she's like in absolutely like terrible situations where her family dies, where she sees people like babies are about to get murdered, like she's keeping that composure, but she's keeping the composure for the sake of avoiding war, right? They're in peacetime. She said that the reason they died was to prevent bloodshed, which is ironic, right? Because they've shed their blood. They literally had to shed blood in order to prevent bloodshed, but bloodshed means like total war. And I think that total war with like the entire country. And I think that you, the audience member, you don't really realize how significant or heavy that is until you see this, because it's like in this moment, she's like, everything that I've kept it together for is now gone. Like all of the repression, it's over. We don't have the same goal anymore, which is to keep peace. It is like just to survive. And so you see her completely broken. Her face has been composed, and then it has smiles and has vulnerability and happiness, which you barely see, but you did see it when she's like in the light, when she's talking to Blackthorne a lot of the times. And then now it's like absolute sadness and despair. And this is the first time we fucking see that. And so for me, it was so heavy because I'm like, you're right. You guys have all been together, keeping it so tight. And now it's blown up. And finally, we're going to see like the grieving come out, and like the human, the other heart that like she's been keeping secret is now out for us. And so it was so powerful and beautiful for me to watch.
Inez, where do you suppose we go next week with what's happened? I have no idea. Like I told you, I got to this part of the book just, after I saw it, and then I kind of stopped there. So what do you suppose happens next?
I'm assuming that we're getting close now to like a big battle scene. I mean, Gabby mentioned earlier that it's possible that Joseon's whole crew being wiped out just means it bought some time. So maybe we'll see some more strategizing and whatnot. But I think the people are itching for like a good, authentic and upgraded battle scene, with the cannons now. Like, we got a flavor. We're excited now, and like we're sick. We're like disgusting humans, and we want to see more of this.
Yeah, total savages.
Well, he sold them on the idea of using the cannons against the walls of Osaka Castle, but given the nature of how this fight is starting, the fight might come to them, which isn't a great way to start if you're Yabu and Toranaga.
Yeah. Especially there's a spy, so even if all of Joseon's crew is wiped out, there's still a spy that did get word out to somebody somehow. So yeah, it's not going to stay a secret very long. Yeah,
I think we're going to see some like holy shit admin kind of stuff. Like, gotta tell Toranaga what just happened. We gotta do some stuff.
I don't know about a battle, but definitely some of that. Some panic mode, damage control.
Yes,
sort of
right.
Stuff.
Blackthorne's might be more convincing about wanting his ship back.
Oh my god. Yeah.
But I think the battle's inevitable. Might even be toward the end of the next episode.
So you said there's only one season?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how many episodes can they have that are filled with battle though?
Yeah, what's the book like, Paul? You don't know.
I don't know.
Paul?
No.
Are you halfway through?
I am halfway through. The book is, in Audible terms, it is 2 24-hour books. So one 48-hour book. And I'm about 25 hours in.
Oh my gosh. I'm 2 hours into the show and I'm dying. So Godspeed with you, sir. But I think that yours is much more interesting than the 80s.
Yeah. We had pretty low expectations for diversity and inclusion in the 80s. I mean, if you go back even further, you'll find John Wayne playing Genghis Khan.
Yeah, I know.
Charlton Heston playing a Mexican policeman.
Oh my God. Yeah, this was different. At least they had actual Japanese people. So
right.
You're right. I need to not even have an open mind. I need to like take out my brain and mush it up and then see it through that lens so that I can manage to get through it. Okay, sorry. Anyway, exciting stuff. Let's go.
Exciting stuff. If you've enjoyed our podcast, then please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Spotify or even YouTube or wherever you listen to this podcasts, experience podcasts, soak, bathe in the podcasts. That would really help us out. Or leave a rating on any of those platforms as well. That'll help people find the podcast, and other people can join in and talk to us. We also have a website, or a Facebook group, I should say, named the same thing. It is the Tales from the Shogunate, a Shogun companion podcast. You can find it on Facebook and join us. We are always posting things like polls and videos and sharing things from the FX website or other articles. It's a great group. It's mostly Vivars at this point, but it's a great group.
Yeah, it's a lot of
It
fun.
is fun. And it needs to grow. This is such an amazing show. We need to find our people so we can love it all together. Come find us. Our people can find us.
In the meantime, though, we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.